Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Anaya Karunya Kanaganatam Prapta Sakalyana Durnanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu ki Gita Amanchakam Pasu Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Romanchakam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramarjanadu Joktasya bhaktamsa niyunjatopi Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasadu Satvana Truptam Hari Bhakta Sangam Chaturvidha Shri Kridvaiva Trupti Bhajato Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Shiradhikama Rabayarapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna Shri Radhikama Madhurya Leela Pratichana Analalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Sijai Yaya libiri yukti apekchaniya Nikunja yuno Siddhai Tatratidacha Ativalabhasya Vande Gudashi Charanarvindam Sakchataripena Shamasta Shashrim Ruktatatthava Gataiva Sadhavim Sakchataripena Shamasta Shashrim Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gudashi Charanara Vrindam Kinto Prabhoja Tasya Yasya Prasada Bhagava Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadam Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Gudashi Charanarvindam Vande Gudashi Charanarvindam Vande Gudashi Charanarvindam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachakrine Nirvishesam Shanyavari Vattatadesha Tarine Saraswati Deve Gauravani Shanavadi Patatare Shata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanyam Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Chaitanya Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Gaura Nityananda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama. Jadavaya Madhavaya Kesavaya Nama. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghuna. Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghuna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhajagacharya Suttara Saraswati Srimad. His Divine Grace Abhacharavina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Pratishta Vibhiti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Shiromani Patit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patito Dhar Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhadra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Premanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Guru Hari Mahavana Avatari Ki Jai. Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Juga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Priyapadanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakupna Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathurdam Ki Jai. The Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. Shri Maya Purnavadip Ekachakradam Ki Jai. Paramakaruna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Shri Purushottam Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Shrimad Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai. Sitaram Lakshman Bhaktan Manji Ki Jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai. Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Maturadharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Nitai Guru Hari Pramanandi Hari Bol. All glory to the Assembly bodies. All glory to the Assembly bodies. All glory to the Assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasingaya.
Praladadayine.
Praladadayini.
Hiranyakashipurbhakshaha.
Hiranyakasipu Vakshaya.
Shilatankarakalaye.
Silatankalakalaye.
Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha.
Iparisinga Paratanisinga.
Eto yato yamitato Narasimha.
Jaya Jata Jata Jamitata Nisinga.
Bahe Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha.
Daye Nisinga Hridaye Nisinga.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Tava Karakamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shingam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadreta Narahari Rupa Jajagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare.
Tava Karakamalabare Naka Adbhuta Shinga. Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanabringam. Kesavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadishare. Jai Jagadishare. Jai Jagadishare.
Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare.
Jaya Kesavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadishare. Jai Jagadishare. Jai Jagadishare.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha.
Jaya Bhakta Pralad Jaya Bhakta Pralad Jaya Bhakta Pralad Jaya Pralad Maharaj.
Jaya Bhakta Pralad Jaya Bhakta Pralad Bhakta Pralad Jaya Pralad Maharaj.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. जय श्री श्री भक्ति पद सर्व विघ्नाशन कनिष्ठ हरे भगवान की जय। भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। गौरी प्रमानंदे हरि बोल। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाई केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे सतवताय नमः नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाई केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमः नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रियाई केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी। नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी। नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लोय तारा वंचा पूर्ण हो।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लय तार वांछा पूर्ण।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुम्हें कृपा करी कर तोरे वृंदावन वासी।
मोरा अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास।
मोरा eya vela velas kunje diyava
नयने हरि वो सदा जुगल रूपरासी
Amnayane Ribosada Jugala Ruparasi
निवेदना धारो सखीरनुगाता कोरो
Aine Vedana Dana Sakirayanu Gatakara
सेवाधिकारा दिए करो निजदासी
Sevayade Karadiye Karane Jadasi
दीना कृष्ण दासे कोए जीना मोरा होए
Dinna Krishna Dasakoy Hey Namora
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi
यानी कानी च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Dani Kani Sapapani Brahmatari Kani Sa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
यानी कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Dani Kani Sapapani Brahmatari Kani Sa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
यानी कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Dani Kani Sapapani Brahmatari Kani Sa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya, Vrinda Devi Jaya, Vrinda Devi Jaya, Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol,
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol,
Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. जय वृंदा देवी की
Jai. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shattavatai Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shattavatai Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shattavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Sata Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namaha. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carried damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Shri Radha Govinda Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Kristakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanam Ajanam Bhavamadavam Nivapanam Shri Akari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Jivanam Padam Punam Shashanam Sarasmasam Param Jayate Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakai Namo Dasavashakti Shri Krishna ki jai. Om Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Pralaya Krishna Krishna. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of the period of birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it raises the benediction moon. It is a life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord on a stroll in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your casual devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I'm fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And will the hairs on my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years and more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world and in your absence. I don't know one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if it handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri 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 Kyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1, blaspheme devotees who dedicate their life for the propagation of the holy name of the Lord. 2, three, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4, blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature pursuance of Vedic version. 5, consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6, to give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9, to instruct the fatherless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10, do not have complete faith in chanting of the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now, let us offer our respectful obeisances on all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Swabhigya Swara Tenne Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Mujantija Suraya Tejo Varimrita Jata Vinimajo Jatra Trisagumrisya Dhamna Svena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyang Paramdimahi. O my Lord Sri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead,
Offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
And the primeval cause of all causes.
and the primeval cause of all causes,
Creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all
And
manifestations.
he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge into the heart of Brahmaji,
It's the only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of
the
Brahmaji,
original living being.
the original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into
As one is
illusion.
bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen in fire or land seen on water.
of water seen the fire, of land seen the water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him the material universe
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they are
I therefore
real.
meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri
who is
Krishna,
eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of
I
material world.
meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaitravotra,
Dharma prujita kaitavutra,
paramo nimatsaranam satam,
paramo nirmashranam satam,
vedyam vastavam atravastu,
vedyam vastavam astravastu,
shivadam tapatrayon
shivadam tapo trayamulanam,
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite,
Kimva Purer Ishwaraha
Kimva Paririshwaraha,
Sadyo Hridi Avrudyate
Sadyurudya Varudhyatitra,
Kriti Bihi Sususubhistakshana.
Kritibhi Shishubhishtakyana,
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in their heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in maturity.
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
Itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need with the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this cult of knowledge,
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpataror kalitam phalam,
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam,
Shuka mukhat amrita drabha sangitam,
pivata Bhagavatam rasamalayam,
Pivata Bhagavatam rasamayam,
muhur ahorasika bhuvi bhavakaha.
Mora horasika bhuvi bhavuka.
O expert and thoughtful men relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
O expert and thoughtful men relish Srimad
The
Bhagavatam,
mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures.
the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic
It
literature.
emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadev Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful,
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice was all relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam swakata Krishna.
Shravanam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hridyantakstohi Bhadrani.
Vidyantastu Yavadani.
Vidunati Srihitsatam.
Vidunati Srisata.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literatures,
or to hear from him directly,
or to hear from him directly,
is itself righteous activity.
is righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart,
acts as a best wishing friend,
acts as the best wishing
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the devotee who's constantly engaged in hearing with him.
Nasta prayesu bhadresu
Nasta Praishwa Bhadrishu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Seva
bhagavati tamasloke
Bhagavati Uttamasloke
bhaktir bhavati naistake.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service to the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamaloba dayaschaye
Kamalo Bhadayascha
cheta etairanabidam
Cheta Itaranabhiram
stitvam sattve prasidati.
Stitam Sadve Prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion of ignorance,
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasana manaso
bhagavat bhakti yogataha
Bhagavat Bhakti Yoga
bhagavat tattva vijnanam
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana
mukta sanghasya jayate.
Mukta Sangha Sajayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped away,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidates remain steady and
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya Granti
siddhyante sarva samsaya,
Siddhyante Sarva
siyante chasya karmani,
Siddhyante Satya Karmani
trista evatmanishvare.
Manishvari.
Thus, bhakti yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
As a bhakti that serves the heart of material affection
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagam,
and enables us to come at once to the stage of Assumption Samagram,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 19, verse number 5. Ato vihayaman amuntnam. Ato vihayaman amun chalokam.
Ato vihayim mamamunchalokam
Vimarsito he yataya purastat.
vimarshito he yataya purastat
Krishnangri sevam adimanyamana.
Krishnangri sevam adimanyamana
Upavisat prayam amartyanadyam.
upavisat prayam amartyamadyam.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Parikshit sat down firmly on the banks of the Ganges to concentrate his mind in Krishna consciousness, rejecting all other practices of self-realization, because transcendental loving service to Krishna is the greatest achievement, superseding all other methods. For a devotee, purport by Srila Prabhupada, for a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit, none of the material planets, even the topmost Brahmaloka, is as desirable as Goloka Vrindavan, the abode of Lord Shri Krishna, the primeval Lord and original personality of Godhead. This earth is one of the innumerable material places within the universe, and there are innumerable universes also within the compass of the Mahatattva. The devotees are told by the Lord and his representatives, the spiritual masters or Acharya, that not one of the planets within all the innumerable universes is suitable for the residential purposes of a devotee. The devotee always desires to go back to Godhead, or back home, back to Godhead, just to become one of the associates of the Lord in the capacity of servitor, friend, parent, conjugal lover of the Lord, either in one of the innumerable Vaikuntha planets or in Goloka Vrindavana, the planet of Lord Shri Krishna. All these planets are eternally situated in the spiritual sky, the Paravyoma, which is on the other side of the causal ocean within the Mahatattva. Maharaj Parikshit was already aware of all this information due to his accumulated piety and birth in a high family of devotees, Vaishnavas. And thus he was not at all interested in the material arrangements. But they cannot conceive of the highest planet. And not at all interested in the material planets. Modern scientists are very eager to reach the moon by material arrangements, but they cannot conceive of the highest planet of this universe. But a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit does not care a fig for the moon, or for that matter, any of the material planets. So when he was assured of his death on a fixed state, he became more determined in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna by complete fasting on the bank of the transcendental river Yamuna, which flows down by the capital of Hastinapura in the Delhi state. Both the Ganges and the Yamuna are Amartya, transcendental rivers, and the Yamuna is still more sanctified for the following reasons. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we see that devotees are not hankering what the karma yogis want. The karma yogis, they want mostly elevation to higher material planets, where the karma or the activities there are much more desirable than on the earth, and obviously much more desirable than the lower planets. But Maharaj Parikshit is not interested in anything like that. It says, for a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit, none of the material planets, even the topmost Brahmaloka, is as desirable as Goloka Vrindavana, the abode of Lord Shri Krishna, the primeval Lord and original personality Godhead. So, why would he want this? Because he knows about it, that's why. He knows what is the material world, whether, and because Bhagavad Gita says, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartin Origina. Mamupetya Tuko Tukonteya. Whether one, from the highest planet to the lowest planet, all are places of misery where there's repeated birth and death. So therefore, knowing this, one person like Maharaj Parikshit does not desire elevation to the higher material planets, because it's the same old thing. There's repeated birth and death. There's going to be a struggle for existence. There's going to be misery. So why would he want to go to a place like that? And then, because he has, and what is the material world? It's punarjanma navidyate. It is repeated birth and death in the material world. So why would he even imagine going to such a place? Okay, so then the Earth is just one planet in one universe, but Maharaj Parikshit also knows that there are many universes, and almost innumerable number of material universes, and they all have the same description. Abrahma Bhuvanaloka Punar Avartin Origina Mamupetya Tukontia Punar Janma Navidyate. They're full of dukkaliam asastratam. They're temporary and they're full of misery. And there's repeated birth and death. So he doesn't even want to go to another universe. Let's say there are more prominent universes, because in every universe there's a Brahma, and we also know when Brahma went to see Krishna in Dwarka, he announced, the guard said, "Who are you?" He said, "I am Brahma." So when they went to tell Krishna, and Krishna said, "Which Brahma is he?" So Brahma got confused when he heard that. But when he went and saw the Lord, he saw that there was hundreds, millions of other Brahmas, and Brahmas with more heads than him. Some Brahmas have thousands of heads, because they're in much more complicated universes. So they need more intelligence to manage those universes. Our Brahma only has 4 heads. So Maharaj Parikshit understands that, okay, let's say this universe is somewhat less evolved than other universes. But he doesn't want to go to those universes either, because it's all the same, from the top planet to the lowest planet. They're all places of misery, and there's all struggle for existence. Why is there struggle for existence? Because people are ignorant that they have an eternal soul. They think, I am the body. So they're struggling to hold on to the body as long as possible, and they're trying to find some miraculous way to maintain life in the body and life on this planet forever. And that's impossible. So they're always struggling with the body. And they make many hospitals and vaccines and different medicines. Just like one devotee in France just sent me yesterday a video made in India of a lady questioning one of the top Ayurvedic doctors in India about, because Modi now has asked the Ayurvedic doctors, prominent doctors in India, to find a preventive for COVID and a cure. And by asking that question to the Ayurvedic doctors, all the Ayurvedic doctors are excited now, because if they do that, then it'll put, in their minds, they'll think that, oh, well, Ayurveda is not about well-being. It's actually a bona fide medical practice, in the same way as the allopathic doctors. So this top Ayurvedic doctor started talking exactly like the other doctors, the nonsense doctors. Talked exactly the same way. Now we have our team, and we're gathering so much information, and we're going to examine all the different Ayurvedic herbs and choose the ones that are most efficient and most adapted. And then the lady asked the question, said, "But Dr. Panditji," she said, "isn't it true that Ayurveda is like specific for finds a cure that's specific for each person?" He said, "Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true. But we're going to do something more general." That the whole thing was nonsense. So I wrote back to my friend, and I said, "This whole thing is commercial. It's nonsense. It's based on speculation, because Ayurveda is studied in the Atharva Veda by much greater doctors than they have today. And it doesn't need any more experimentation and writing papers and this thing and that thing. It's part of the Vedas, and the Vedas generally are perfect in the information that they give. So why do we have to do more research? Why do they have to write more papers and things like that? That means they don't know they don't understand Ayurveda themselves. They're not really that great, you know. So the lady kept asking him questions. She kept saying, "Well, doctor, because he kept saying, we're getting our teams ready. These are the top Ayurvedic doctors in India. We're going to do this research and write many papers, and we're going to examine all the herbs. All the herbs have already been examined, right? And all the research has already been done. And he said, yeah, even in the Ayurvedic practice, in the ancient scriptures, they talk about epidemics. So therefore, they also knew that there might be some cure for everybody that's universal. But, we're going to work on this and find it. But they already found it. Right? So the point is that this is all a commercial thing. It has nothing to do with actually medicine. Just like nowadays they're talking about they have the vaccine for COVID, and now they're giving the shots to people. That's not the real cure. That's not the real cure. It's a preventive vaccine. It doesn't cure COVID. It's supposed to be a preventive vaccine, but it's imperfect preventive vaccine, just like all the flu vaccines are imperfect preventive vaccines, you see. So here we see that there's a huge hoax, and it's just part of the general theme of struggle for existence in a material world. We discussed this very much yesterday by reading that wonderful lecture by Srila Prabhupada, that people don't realize that the solution to the problem of sickness, of old age, of disease, of death, and so forth, is to become Krishna conscious. That's the solution. Where you get your spiritual body, you go back to Godhead. They're not going to find any way to make this body that we have now eternal. It's not possible. There's no way that they're going to stop sickness. And just by opening more hospitals doesn't solve the problem. It just proves that more people are sick. So here it says, their devotees are told by the Lord and his representatives, the spiritual masters or acharyas, that not one of the planets within all the innumerable universes is suitable for the residential purposes of a devotee. So why are they trying to go to the moon? Why are they trying to go to Mars? Well, they haven't really gone to the moon, and they're not really going to be able to go to Mars. But these are all childish attempts based on speculation and the refusal, absolute refusal to take instruction from Vedic scriptures and bona fide Vaishnava sampradayas about what is the real situation in this material world, who is God, what is the spiritual world, and how to attain it. The devotee always desires to go back home, back to Godhead, just to become one of the associates of the Lord in the capacity of a servitor, friend, parent, or conjugal lover of the Lord, either in one of the innumerable Vaikuntha planets or in Goloka Vrindavan, the planet of Lord Shri Krishna. So today, we don't hear about Vaikuntha or Goloka in schools. We're educated that we're an accident. It all happened by an accident. And that some electrical or lightning struck a primeval protein soup that was in the North Pole, and all of a sudden one amoeba was formed, and that amoeba became 2 amoebas, and the 2 amoebas became 4 amoebas, and eventually through some mixing up of the genes, it became a 2-celled living entity instead of a 1-celled living entity, and then eventually a 4-celled living entity, and then eventually human being. This is all nonsense. It's all crazy stuff. It has no factual basis to it at all. But that's what they're taught in school. That as the origin of the species, it happened like this, and it all happened by accident. Human beings are an accident. See? So therefore, there's no meaning to life other than eat, sleep, mate, and defend. See? So kids are being taught to live on the level of animals and not live as a genuine human being. And their parents are pushing them toward this. You have to go to this school. You have to learn this. Yeah, and along with learning how to be an engineer, you also have to learn about Darwin and Freud and Marx. So these are the three main, let's say, gurus of modern education: Darwin, Freud, and Marx. Darwin teaches you that human beings are an accident. It all happened by some crazy process called the survival of the fittest and genetic mutation and blah, blah, blah. It's all nonsense. There's no proof of that. And then secondly, Freud says, oh, well, religion is the opium of the people. And if you want to have a happy life, then you should, not have sexual frustration. So then he analyzes all about sex. And then Marx, he says, well, look, capitalism is a bad thing, and communism is the only way, and we have to attain perfect communism by first having a dictatorship, and then afterwards everyone will be owners. But that never happens. The dictators never give up controlling the so-called communist state. So there's never been real communism. It's all dictatorship. So this is what kids are fed. That's why now we can understand why there's rioting. Even though Biden was elected, there's still rioting going on in Seattle and Portland and other places. Why are they rioting? Because Biden is not a communist. He's simply a socialist, but they want communism. So you see, there's no end to this struggle, and because it's all speculation. There's no bona fide authority. But here, Maharaj Pariksit was educated properly, so he understood that the devotee always desires to go back home, back to Godhead, because they know that there is a spiritual world. They know that they came originally from that spiritual world, but because they revolted against the authority of God, they were given a chance to try and find satisfaction in the material world, which is impossible. And therefore, eventually, if they have the opportunity to associate with real devotees, they can find out what the truth is, where they actually came from, where they actually belong, and the truth about the material world. Just like yesterday, we first understood in that lecture of Prabhupada, what is the position of living entity in the material world, and then, secondly, he explained who is God and what is the position and what is the spiritual world and what is the real goal of human life. So that's education. That's real education. And Prabhupada explains this even more thoroughly in a lecture, Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 9th chapter, verse number 18 and 19. So number 18, it's a very interesting verse. Prahlad Maharaj is speaking to Lord Nrsingadev, and he says, "Oh, my Lord Nrsingadev, by engaging in your transcendental loving service, in the association of devotees who are liberated souls, hamsas, swan-like, I shall become completely uncontaminated by the association of the three modes of material nature and be able to chant the glories of your Lordship who are so dear to me. I shall chant your glories, following exactly in the footsteps of Lord Brahma and his disciplic succession. In this way, I shall undoubtedly be able to cross the ocean of nescience." Now, this is an amazing verse. And, by the way, there's some good news in this verse. We're in the same sampradaya as Prahlad Maharaj. It's called the Brahma Sampradaya, right? So that's very good news. And Prabhupada says, a devotee's life and duty are very well explained herein in this verse. As soon as the devotee can chant the holy name and glories of the Supreme Lord, meaning Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and glories of the Lord, that's Bhagavad Gita, that's Srimad Bhagavatam, that's Brahma Samhita, all bona fide mantras that should be sung and chanted. Therefore, he certainly comes to the liberated position by chanting the holy name and the glories of the Supreme Lord. Attachment for glorifying the Lord by hearing and chanting the holy name and activities of the Lord, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, certainly brings one to the position where material contamination is absent. In other words, you become purified by chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, and then also chanting the glories of the Lord, just like Chintamani Prakasat Nasukalpa Vriksha Laksavrite Susurabhira Vipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambrahma Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. These are the glories of the Lord. This is a prayer by Brahma himself, the founder of the Brahma Sampradaya, the direct student, direct disciple of Lord Krishna himself, right? Enlightened by the Lord himself through the heart. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Atsurayaha. Attachment for glorifying the Lord by hearing and chanting the holy name and activities of the Lord, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, certainly brings one to the position where material contamination is absent. One should chant the bona fide songs received from the disciplic succession. So we're chanting bona fide songs received from the disciplic succession of Narottam Das Thakur, of the Goswamis, of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and so forth. So, these are the bona fide Vaishnava, let's say, bhajans. And it says in Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the chanting is powerful when one follows the disciplic succession. Evam parampara praptam imam raja sayu vidu. Sakalena mahata yoganasta parantapa. This is Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Manufacturing many ways of chanting will never be effective. However, chanting the song or the narration left by the previous acharyas, Mahajana Yenagata Sapanta, one should follow the Mahajans and learn from their example, right? Just like, what is Prabhupada's example? What's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's example? What's Gaur Kishore Babaji's example? What's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's example? They all accepted living gurus. What's Krishna's example? Accepted living guru, right? What's Brahma's example? Accepting living guru, right? And today, they make this philosophy ritvik. You can accept any guru that's passed away in the past. No, that's nonsense. Complete nonsense. Mahajana Yenikata Sapanta means you follow the Mahajans, because they will reveal to you what is the pant, what is the real path of devotional service by their example. We don't make up, we don't imagine something, we don't make something up through logic and reason. We follow their example. So therefore, Prabhupada is saying here, manufacturing many ways of chanting will never be effective. Yeah, don't make up songs, don't make up poetries and things like that. Just follow what has been given to us by the acharyas and the mahajans. Therefore, in this verse, Prahlad Maharaj uses the word anja, easily, accepting the thoughts of exalted authorities through disciplic succession is certainly much easier than the method of mental speculation by which one tries to invent some means to understand the absolute truth. The best process is to accept the instructions of the previous acharyas and follow them. Okay. By following this easy method, one is liberated from the contamination of the material modes of nature, and thus one can certainly cross the ocean of nescience in which there are many miserable conditions. By following in the footsteps of the great acharyas, one associates with the Hamsas, or Paramahamsas, who are completely freed from material contamination. Indeed, by following the instructions of the acharyas, one is always freed from all material contamination, and thus one's life becomes successful. For one reaches the goal of life. What's that? The goal of life is to develop pure love and devotion for Krishna. Then it doesn't matter whether you're in the material world or the spiritual world, because it's all spiritual now, because you're seeing Krishna all the time. Of this, there's no doubt. Attempts to mitigate the miseries of material existence by material methods, hospitals, vaccines, this thing, that thing, will never be successful One must take the Krishna consciousness to become really happy, otherwise happiness is impossible. One might say that becoming advanced in spiritual life also involves tapasya, voluntary acceptance of some inconvenience. However, such inconvenience is not as dangerous as material attempts to mitigate all miseries. Yeah, already more than 100 people have died by getting the vaccine for COVID. Did you know that? They died because of the vaccine. Yeah, look that up. See if you can find that. So, this is extremely interesting. Prabhupada says, no material means can really give relief. Relief of the suffering. Just like a boat cannot give protection to a drowning man. So Prabhupada says, this is a very instructive verse, this 7:9:19. The whole world is planning to give relief to the suffering humanity. But the foolish people, they do not know that you may do your best, but if it is not sanctioned by the Supreme Lord, all these measures will not be of any use. Yes. Why? We have got science, medicine, and relief arrangement. They are all useless. Wow, Prabhupada is amazing. He spoke this, what year did he speak this? February 26, 1976. He says they're all useless. Yes, they are useful so long or as long as Krishna says yes. If Krishna says no, then in spite of all this relief, nothing will be done. This is the answer. You can open many hospitals, but if Krishna says that this patient must die, you cannot give any protection. That is not possible. In spite of your hospital, good medicine, good physician, the patient must die. So they do not see this, that in spite of our so much advancement of civilization, hospitals, and other relief measures, why still people are suffering? You are increasing hospital or beds of hospital. You are very much proud that we have opened hospitals. What does it mean? That means people have become more diseased. You have open hospitals. You are very much proud, but what is the other side? Other side, that people have increased their disease condition, that they do not see. They do not see this. They are simply proud of increasing hospital. Why there should be hospital? Why not stop disease? That is scientific advancement. Stop disease, and there will be no need of opening hospital. Krishna therefore presents in the Bhagavad Gita that you rascal, you see, real problem is janma mrityu jara vyadi. Bhagavad Gita 13:9. You can invent very nice, up-to-date, modernized medicine, but why don't you stop disease? That you cannot do. That is not possible. Janma mrityu jara vyadi. You are taking so many measures to stop untimely death. Just like in your country, there are beaches and so many warnings. Don't come here. And there is guard. I mean, he's talking about a safeguard. Seeing if anyone is dying. But you cannot stop death. That is not possible. You may take measures. You may undertake different measures to do this. So many. You cannot stop death. Children, somebody says, the parents do not take care. But even the parents take care. It is guaranteed that the children will not die? No. There are many rich men. They are taking care of their children. Rich men, they are taking care of the diseased person. Good physician, good medicine. Why the diseased person dies anyway? Why the children suffering anyway? So these things are to be observed. Why these things happen? That means the ultimate control is in the hand of Krishna. If Krishna sanctions, then everything will be possible. So why not take shelter of Krishna? This is the idea. You take shelter of Krishna, and if Krishna likes, he will give you all protection. And he promises that. I'll give protection. Sarvadharman parityaja. Mamekam saranam raja. Ham tvam sarvapapebhyo. Mokshisyami mahasucha. Because we become diseased, we become subject to birth and death. This is all due to our sinful activities. Yeah, I don't hear anybody say, not even in India, not even the Ayurvedic doctor, right? They're all brought up in India. Modi is brought up in India. Ayurvedic doctors are brought up in India. They all have access to the Vedic knowledge. ISKCON is there. Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is there. Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't hear any of them say, look, let's all eliminate meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. Let's start there to heal the disease. Not one of them says that. That means they're all nonsense. They're not actually doctors. They're just businessmen. And that's what I wrote to my friend. I said, this is all commercial. This is all nonsense. There's no cure here. There's no prevention either. They're just talking nonsense. This whole lecture that the Ayurvedic doctor gave was the same type of nonsense that Dr. Fauci gives also in the United States. You know, our team is working, we're researching, we're re-examining every herb, ashwagandha, this one and that one, and we're going to find some. Wait a minute. You're not going to find anything. You're just going to make money. That's all. You know? So the lady kept asking him, doctor, is there anything practical people can do? Well, he said, yeah, well, you can drink water with a little lemon in it. That's good. You'll get some vitamin C. He started talking complete nonsense, you know. And he said, you know, ashwagandha is a pretty good herb, you know. I mean, there's a few others too. We're still looking at them, you know. You might want to take that, and you should definitely drink some hot water. You should definitely drink hot water, he said. Well, anybody can say those things, right? That doesn't mean that's going to cure. No, they don't want to. They don't want to talk about a cure because they want to make money. They want you to wait for them to come up with a vaccine or some cocktail of Ayurvedic herbs that are special, and herbs that you can't find. They only grow at 6,000-foot altitude in the Himalayas, and it's a area that is protected by the government. Nobody can go in there, and you know they have to make it exclusive. See, the whole thing is a hoax. It's a whole business proposition. It has nothing to do with helping the people. See, you want to help the people? Tell them to give up meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, and intoxication. That's where you start healing diseases. Right? You give up going to sleep late at night. You give up eating late at night. You give up eating more than once or twice a day. I mean, you limit your eating and eat only sattvic food. And it's not should only be food. It should be prasadam. See, they're not saying any of this stuff. You know, there's two things. There's lifestyle and there's medicine. But the medicine won't work unless the lifestyle is adjusted. You can take all the medicine in the world. It will not work unless you have a clean, sattvic lifestyle. Taking a bath twice a day minimum or 3 times a day. Putting on clean clothes. And all these things are necessary for maintaining the body. And the less you eat, the longer you live. Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Haridas Thakur, they all limited their eating and sleeping because they were excited about Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada gives the example of Napoleon. He said Napoleon only slept 2 hours or 3 hours at night. And he wasn't Haridas Thakur or Raghunath Das Goswami. He was Napoleon. He was excited by conquering. Therefore, he couldn't sleep. He'd wake up after an hour or two of sleep, and he'd collect all his secretaries all around him. And then he would start telling this secretary, you go to the front on the east, and you start building the special hospital for all the wounded soldiers, and then this thing and that thing. And he'd be giving instructions to all his secretaries, and then he'd make sure they go out and do those things that day. He was excited about conquering. Now, what happens if you get excited about Krishna consciousness? You become like the Goswamis, who hardly slept or ate anything. They were so excited learning about Krishna and preaching and helping people become Krishna conscious. So one time we were on a morning walk with Prabhupada in Paris, and we went to Place de la Tuileries, and that's a beautiful place. And no, it's Place de la Concorde, and it's a beautiful place. That's where the obelisk is. It's something that the French stole from Egypt. This is magnificent statue, not a statue, but it's a column. It's right in the middle of this gigantic square area where there are a lot of cars and these fabulous buildings. And Prabhupada was standing on this on the big platform of the Musée de l'Homme, the Museum of Humanity, and looking out over this panoramic view of this Place de la Concorde, Concord Place with the obelisk. And the other side, he saw, far away, he saw this beautiful building. He said, "What is that building?" And we said, "Oh, that's, what's the name of that?" Anyway, we said it's the hospital that Napoleon built for all his soldiers that get wounded. It's a huge building, right? And it's very, very nice. And it's the original building. Nothing had been done. I mean, it's been kept up and taken care of. And it was built around 1815, 1820. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, Napoleon built it?" And we said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "It's a very nice building." And then he said, "The building is still there, but where is Napoleon?" Now, Prabhupada was amazing. He said he built such a wonderful building to last forever, but he's not here anymore. So I mean, he was implying a lot of things in that statement. Like, for example, in Satya Yuga, right? Satya Yuga is when the mode of goodness is at its highest stage. Everyone, virtually everyone, is a devotee, right? People never made buildings that would last a long time or last eternally, right? Like this this hospital that Napoleon built, they built it really well, right? It's still there. And how many years is it now? It's like more than 200 years, right? It's still there and it's perfect shape, So they built it to last. But yet, the people are not going to be able to enjoy it. The people that build it, they're dead and gone. And this is the idea that, in Satya Yuga, they didn't build buildings that would last forever, like the pyramids. Or the pyramids are built to last for a long, long time. There was nothing like that in Satya Yuga. Satya Yuga is at least at least more than 200 million years ago, right? So, therefore, people think, the archaeologists think that, people were very primitive at that time because there's no buildings that are remaining from that time. Well, they didn't build lasting buildings because they didn't waste their time. They were also engaged in devotional service, and nature was so cooperating with them. They didn't need to build these powerful buildings with heating and electricity and all that stuff. They were living a very natural life, and they used all their time for Krishna consciousness. And everything was almost provided for them by nature. So we see what we have today is this preoccupation, this struggle for existence to try and make the body and everything related to the body eternal. But it's not possible to do that. See? So it's unnecessary, and it's unnecessary. If we simply follow Krishna consciousness, everything will come naturally and easily. And that's what we've been reading in the Bhagavatam. Whenever there's a saintly king, nature cooperates in such a way that the people do not have to work so hard and they have more time for Krishna consciousness. Anyway, this is extremely big subject, and it takes time for us who have been conditioned by material education and material life and bad association to think that these things are not possible. That's what we're conditioned to think. This is all impossible. It's all pie in the sky. We can't go back to that kind of living. We have to continue what we're doing now. No, it's not a fact. But we can gradually transform our life and our goals. Our goal should be to go back to Godhead and take many people with us and create this golden age of 10,000 years that Lord Chaitanya has predicted right here on this earth, and help many, many people go back to Godhead. Okay, so Prabhupada, I'll continue with this tomorrow, but there was one other thing I wanted to talk about real quickly, and then we'll finish. That is, there's a very interesting story that once upon a time there was a father and mother that had 3 sons, and the mother was dying, and right before she died, she told her husband that one of the 3 sons was an illegitimate child that she had while they were married, but she never told her husband that she had been made pregnant by some other man. And the father was shocked. But she didn't tell him which one of the 3 sons was illegitimate, and then she died. So when the father was dying also, he told his sons, and he was rather rich, he said, I have some news for you. I'm going to die soon. But your mother told me before she died that one of you is not actually my son. And therefore, 2 of you should get all the land and properties and things like that. But the 3rd son should only get cash money. But we don't know which one is the 3rd son that's not legitimate. So he said, there's one wise man in this other village. After I die, you go and see him and ask him which of you is not the legitimate son. And then you can divide up the assets. The one that's not legitimate will get some money, and the other 2 will get the properties and the ownership of what's remaining. So he dies, and the 3 boys, after the funeral, set out to go to this other village, and they're walking there, and it's quite some distance. And as they're walking, they notice certain things. They're the tracks of a camel, and the eldest boy says, you know, looking at these tracks, I think the camel was blind in one eye. And then the second boy looks carefully and he says, and I think the camel was missing one tooth. And the 3rd boy is looking, and he said that, I think the camel was carrying a sack of butter and a sack of honey. And he also noticed that the camel made frequent stops, and there was a foot, knee, and handprints on the soft soil. So then they kept walking, and then the second brother said, I think the camel's tail was cut off, and only a stump of a tail remained. And then the youngest brother said, After looking carefully, there was probably a pregnant woman riding on the back of the camel. And then after making these observations, they continued to walk toward the next village. And they met a man who was walking very quickly and looking disturbed. And he said to the three brothers, he said, "Have you seen a camel?" And the first brother said, He said, "Did the camel have a blind left eye?" And the man said, "Yes." And another one said, "Was he missing a tooth?" And the man said, "Yes." And the third brother said, "Did he have a stunted tail?" And the man said, "Yes, yes." And then another brother said, "Was he carrying a sack of honey and a sack of butter?" And the man said, "Yes, yes, yes." And he said, and another brother said, "There must have been a pregnant woman riding on a camel's back. Is that a fact?" And he said, "Yes. You know where my camel is?" And they said, "No, we don't know where it is." So the man was shocked. He said, "What?" He said, "You know so many details about the camel, but you don't know where it is? You must have seen it." And they said, "No, we never saw your camel." So the man was really frustrated. He said, "Look," he said, "I'm going to warn you right now. Either you're lying or you are the thieves themselves of the camel." So he left them, and he went to the village where the boys were going to go, and he spoke to the wise man who was also like the elder of that, and he told him that there are these three boys that are coming here, and I think they stole my camel. And so he said, "Be on the lookout." And they are insisting they never saw my camel, but they knew everything about the camel. So he said it's impossible to believe that either they saw the camel or they're the actual thieves. So after he left, the three boys came to that man that the father told to see, and this man, the wise man, who was also a judge, he began to speak to the brothers. He said, "Obviously you three boys met some man on the way here who had lost a camel. And he claims that you were able to describe the camel perfectly, all the little aspects of the camel. But yet you insist you didn't see the camel. So this seems to be impossible and highly suspicious. What do you have to say about this?" So the eldest brother said, "Sir, we swear that we did not see the camel. We were able to surmise different facts or details by carefully noticing the footprints and other signs on the dirt road." So the wise man said, "Well, what led you to believe that the camel had only one eye?" So the elder brother said, "Sir, I noticed corn was growing on the fields on both sides of the road, but the camel ate only from the right side. This observation led me to believe that he must be blind in the left eye because he did not eat from the left side of the road." So the judge said, "Hey, that makes sense. Why did you think the camel had a missing tooth?" So the second brother said, he said, "I saw a repeat pattern in the grass that remained after the camel took a bite. When he cropped the grass, there was always a tuft of grass left that indicated the animal must lack a tooth." So the judge said, "Hey, good for you." He said, "Now tell me why you think the camel has a stump of a tail." So another brother said, "Sir, I noticed the dung droppings of the camel were always in a small mound. If the camel had a long tail, it would have been obliged to wag it continually to keep the flies away in this sultry hot weather. Its wagging tail would have dispersed the falling dung and would not have left a neat mound." Wow. So, man, the judge was really impressed. He said, well, how could you know that the camel was carrying one saddlebag of honey and one of butter?" And elder brother again spoke. He said, "Well, sir, I saw that there were bees on one side of the road where droppings of honey fell, and on the other side there were ants that were drops of butter, where the drops of butter fell." Then he said, "But what prompted you to think that there was a pregnant woman riding the camel?" So the youngest brother said, "Well, whoever was riding the camel made frequent stops and dismounted by forcing the camel to bend down so that she could slide off one side with both feet planted on the ground. Then I noticed the person came to their knees with both hands pressing down on the soil as if she needed to push herself upright first on her knees and then on her feet. I thought about it being strange and concluded it must be a pregnant woman because her pregnancy would cause her to urinate frequently, and the weight of the womb would give her a hard time to stand upright without the added support of her knees and hands pushing up from the ground," said the youngest brother. So the judge said, "Wow," he said, "I'm impressed." He said, "You three have a plausible explanation for every detail, but I'm not completely convinced you are innocent." The judge asked the brothers to wait in another room while he fetched a large box with a lid and drawer that were both locked. He opened the lid and he opened the drawer with the key and placed an orange in it and locked both again. He had the box brought into the room where the three brothers were waiting. And he said, "If you can guess what is in the locked drawer of this locked box, I will let you go free." So the first brother picks up the box and begins to shake it. And he heard some object moving around like a ball. He said, "It must be a round object." And then the second brother said, "Well, I have a hunch. If it's round, it must be yellow." And then the third brother said, "If it's yellow and round, it must be an orange." The judge was impressed. He opened the box and drawer, and to everyone's pleasant surprise, it was an orange. So the judge looked at the men and he said, "These three brothers have not seen your camel, sir. They are telling the truth." Whoa. So he asked the three brothers to wait for dinner to be his guests. And he talked to his wife and asked her to cook a dinner for the three visitors. She prepared some rice preparation with fresh yogurt and fresh baked bread and cooked vegetables and fresh grapes for dessert. Sounds like a devotee. Sounds like an Ekadasi feast. Right? So the judge's wife set the table and served the boys with plentiful portions of each preparation. But he did not sit with them. He remained concealed behind the curtain, and the wife excused herself and went out of the room also. So when the wife left, the brothers began to eat alone. And the eldest brother said, "This yogurt was made from the milk of a cow who was fed with old hay and grain that had rat droppings in them." And the other brother said, second brother said, "This bread is fresh baked, but I detect that the woman that kneaded the dough and baked it was having her menstrual period." And the third brother said, "Our host is a competent judge, but he must not have been born of his father." Whoa. So when the three began to eat the fresh grapes, they looked at each other, and the eldest brother said, "The grapes are fresh. However, the grapevines from which these grapes were picked had their roots in the graveyard." So the judge heard this, and while they were eating, and when he finished, he went to his mother's house immediately, and he was really disturbed. And on entering the house, he kissed his mother and said hello, and asked her with a serious voice, he said, "Mom, you have to tell me. I have a doubt. Someone told me that I am not your legitimate son. Is it absolutely necessary that you tell me the truth?" The mother was silent. And he repeated himself again, and he insisted that she reveal the truth. So she said, "My son, your father and I couldn't conceive a child. He wanted a son. After many years, we were desperate. You were the son of a poor family. They agreed to sell you for a considerable sum of money so that we could adopt you. We never told you. I'm surprised you found out, as no one, and I mean no one, knew about this except your father and I. So the judge thanked his mother for the truth, but he didn't tell her how he found out. He went right away to the dairy farmer from whom his wife purchased the milk. And he said, "Can I inspect your barn where you feed the cows?" And the dairy farmer said, "Yes." So he inspected the barn, and he saw that there was dry old hay that had rat droppings in it. So the dairyman, of course, the judge inspected the hay in the barn and the cows, and he pointed to the droppings, to the farmer, the rat droppings, to the dairyman. And the dairyman shrugged his shoulders and said, "What can I do?" He said, "The rats take refuge in the barn in the winter because it's warmer." So then the judge went to see the vine keeper who grew the grapes and asked him if he could take a look at the vines. And the farmer took him to the vineyard to inspect his grapes. And he had a small field. And the judge asked him if was there any history to this field that was related to the vines. And the farmer looked at him and smiled, and he told him a story he had heard from his grandfather. He said, hundreds of years ago, before there was a fierce battle fought in this village between Armenians and Turks. And it said that all the dead Armenian villages were buried in this field. So the judge returned to his house and spoke to his wife. He asked her if she was having her monthly menses. And the wife said, "How did you know?" "Yes." So the judge was amazed at the accurate guesses of the three brothers. He entered the room where they were seated waiting for him. He excused himself for not eating with them. He explained how he listened to their conversation while they were eating. He noted the different observations they made during the meal and went about the town verifying whether they were accurate or not. And he asked the eldest brother, "How did you know that the cows that gave milk for making yogurt were fed with dry hay and were mixed with rat droppings?" So the eldest brother said that he had eaten yogurt made with milk from cows fed on fresh grass. Thus, he was able to see that there was a difference in taste of the milk coming from cows fed with fresh grass and cows fed with dry grass. And he said the yogurt he ate on the judge's table had a taste of dry hay with a slight musty taste and odor that indicated to him that there was some foreign matter in it. And he noticed an aftertaste that was slightly acrid. So he concluded that the hay was somewhat stale and had rat droppings that gave it a bitter taste So then he asked the second brother how he knew that the person who baked the bread was having her monthly period. And he explained, "I ate the bread. I noticed there were a few uncooked lumps in the bread. It indicated to me that the woman who kneaded the bread was not feeling well and did not do a good job of uniformly kneading the bread. This usually happens when a woman is having her menses." And then the judge looked at the youngest brother and asked, "How did you know I am not my father's son?" And the young man said, "Honorable judge, I noticed you were not sitting at the table with your invited guests, but were hiding behind a curtain listening to our conversation. Excuse me, but only a person of dubious background would do such a thing. I assumed you must not be your father's son." Well, I'm not going to finish the story now. You have to come tomorrow to hear the rest of the story. Believe me, this is a fantastic story. This is on the webpage that I have of all stories. Like, but anyway, we'll finish it tomorrow. But it has a very interesting end, very, very interesting end that you'll be amazed to hear. There is something spiritual about this story. Haribol, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.